Good Wednesday afternoon to you. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. Plenty of Browns to talk about. NFL Scouting Combine underway in Indianapolis. Kevin Stefanski met with the media. We'll hear from him in a little bit later in the show. The D-Man, Dennis Manoloff from News Radio WTAM, News Radio 1100, as well as 106.9 will join us. We'll talk plenty of Browns. We begin by talking Browns, as I mentioned, out in Indianapolis. The NFL gathering to see what this year's class of draftees looks like. Today, Kevin Stefanski met with the media, reinforced he has all the confidence in the world in Baker Mayfield coming back and being ready to be the Browns quarterback.
We talked about it in the moment a lot, certainly never hid from that. But I think it's one of those things where we acknowledge it. Baker acknowledged it, obviously, throughout the season. He played through those injuries. But I don't think it's fair to put what percentage was on that. We just, I think he knows he wants to play better. I know I want to coach better, all those type of things. But we're really focusing on how we're going to do that now moving forward.
So welcome in Eddie McDonald from Dawg Pound Daily. And Eddie, when you look at it, quarterback play just needs to be better, as does the passing game and the offense.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I saw people earlier talk about, like, oh, yeah, the Baker supporters, like, oh, yeah, Stefanski wants him back. And all that doesn't mean anything. Like, Stefanski and Barry are very good at saying a lot without saying anything. But you're absolutely right. The quarterback play, we talked about this, I believe it was last week when I was on, has to be better. No questions about it. The passing game was just abysmal. You can blame it on injuries. You can blame it on whatever you want. You can blame it on the coaches, whatever you want to do. And I think Stefanski's right. You can't put a percentage of blame on that. Obviously an injury like that affected things, but yeah, he's not going to come out and say, yeah, Baker's not my guy anymore. See ya.
Yeah, and again, you have to be prepared for all options. Until they find a better option, Baker Mayfield is their starting quarterback, and right now they haven't found that better option. The other thing Kevin Stefanski reiterated today, he will be calling the plays, but they'll take a look at how they might be able to tweak the offense.
Always, we have to, and I think that's going to be a major focus, has been a major focus of ours as we start this offseason, as we look at the tape of what we're doing, some things that we're doing well, some things that we're not doing so well, and then really studying hard some other teams, seeing what they're doing, and seeing how it applies to what we do. So that's an ongoing process. It's something I think every offseason I want to make sure that I'm intentional about reflecting on everything we do. So our operation, part of our process, if you will, and I think we can do it better.
And Eddie, he said that last year after the offense was good. So I believe him when he says they're going to tweak it and see what they can do better. And you can be sure there'll be some tweaks to the passing game.
Oh, absolutely. He's one of the smarter coaches in the NFL. He learns from mistakes. Last year, it was hard to judge what was going to happen year two. A lot of us thought that, hey, he was going to, be in the coach of the year running again, and the Browns are going to win 10, 11, 12, 13 games, hopefully. That didn't happen. But a lot of fans see that and like, oh, Stefanski can't get receivers open. Look at Stephon Diggs in Minnesota when he was there. It's not the fact he can't get them open, it's just the execution. And they're going to look how they can execute better, see what they did wrong, see what other teams did right. And I love that he said that they're going to look at other teams and see what they did. They can look right in the division at the Cincinnati Bengals, who went to the Super Bowl. What did they do right? How did they get Jamar Chase the ball early and often and in positions to make big plays? How did they get the other receivers, Higgins and Boyd, involved? Uzama, the tight end, involved? How did they let Burrow be Burrow? They're going to take a look at that, and I'm really excited to see how that pans out, especially with free agency coming up and the draft coming up a month later.
And the other thing is we've said it. Passing game needs to be better. Quarterback play needs to be better. One of the things that you can do to help that is go out and get some wide receivers and upgrade that. So let's take a look at a mock draft. This one by Steve Palazzolo from Pro Football Focus. He has the Browns taking Garrett Wilson from Ohio State with the 13th pick in the draft. Him being available, Browns gobbling him up. Garrett Wilson out at the Combine today. Important to note, he also went to the same high school as Baker Mayfield did, Lake Travis, down in Austin, Texas. And the two know each other. There is some familiarity. Here is Garrett Wilson on if, in fact, it is the Browns who draft him.
Yeah, I did have a formal with the Browns, and it would be great to link up with Baker. Baker's someone that like I said, did all the things that I had wanted to do. Being a Heisman winner, that stuff you can only dream about. So watching him ball when I was younger, that was really awesome, and having that opportunity to maybe have that happen again would be awesome.
And you look at it, that's a positive, I would think. Not only have they played together, it's a guy that wants to play with Baker Mayfield.
Sure, and I don't know how many guys want to play with Baker Mayfield right now. Obviously, the Browns have to go out and get him some weapons. That's not to say nobody wants to play with him, but I think a lot of receivers will look around from around the league will look at Odell Beckham Jr. and the Jarvis Landry disgruntledness and see, hey, maybe I don't want to go there. Cleveland has like an up-and-coming organization, but do I want to go there? Am I going to get the ball enough where I think I need to? But having Wilson there, that'd be awesome. We've talked about it on here a couple of times that any of the receivers, the top 5, 6, 7 receivers in this draft, you can pick any one of them for the Browns at 13, and I would be fine with any one of them. I love Garrett Wilson. I'm a big Ohio State fan, so I've seen him play a lot. He does incredible things. And I do like they have that familiarity and that connection. I did see on Twitter earlier, though, something that look at Burrow's connection with Jamar Chase. Well, they're best friends. They have been in college, and they still get to do that in the NFL. That's not quite the case here, but I see where that person was coming from. Just the fact that they had that familiarity. And I think it was last year, the year before, that Wilson was down there working out with Baker and, catching passes from him. I would love that if they did that.
Yeah, that was during the pandemic. They did. He went on to talk about how they worked out during the pandemic. Another guy from Ohio State, Chris Olave, and the Browns have talked with not only Garrett Wilson. Wilson did confirm that. They have also talked with Chris Olave. Here is Olave on if the Browns take him.
I had a meeting with them, I think on Monday, but it's a huge organization. I definitely like the way they run that, and just to stay in the state of Ohio. I know the fan base is crazy, and one of the best fan bases, and I definitely would love that and enjoy that. Oh yeah, when you go to a place like Ohio State, we're gonna have a lot of talent around you. It's only one ball to get around, so at the end of the day, I just want to win. As long as we're winning, we're all selfless in that receiver room. We have so many guys, so many talented guys, and especially this year, we had 3 guys go over 100 multiple games. So just being competitive and trying to get better every day alongside those guys, and then whatever happens on game day happens. As long as we win, I'm good.
And again, he's talking about, if he doesn't get the ball all the time, he understands that. Again, would be an interesting fit. I don't know that it would be at 13, probably the back half of the first draft, or if he falls into the second, would be where you're probably looking at Chris Olave.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I can see if the Browns trade back, there's a lot of speculation around this time of year to what any team is going to do, not just the Browns. We're just in the Browns bubble. But every team speculates on what's going to happen. All the fans, hey, I want this guy, I want this position. Olave is a very talented receiver, another one of my favorites. As I said, I'm an Ohio State fan, so I got to see a lot of him over the past couple of years. And I think he would be good in Cleveland as well. And I think he'd be one of those guys, like if the Browns traded back in the first round, he'd be there, mid-20s, maybe early second round too. I think either way, if he falls and the Browns are able to get him, that's a steal for them. Even if he falls to whoever in the mid-20s or the early 30s, that's a steal for any team who's getting them, I think.
All right, let's turn our attention to a veteran receiver that still some questions if Jarvis Landry is going to be around. I know you wrote an article. Did Jarvis Landry actually change the culture for the Browns? Take us through that and what you found.
Okay, so last week, obviously, we saw the tweets from Jarvis, and he went and had if you want to call it a meltdown or, just a vent session or whatever you want to call it. He took to Twitter, and that's his prerogative. He's allowed to do that. He said he gave everything he had, and he played hurt, and which is great. And no one's questioning his toughness. And if you question his toughness, I don't know what football you've ever watched in your life, but that guy is the epitome of toughness, and I'm never taking that away from him. What I am taking away from him, though, is he, comes in and wants to do everyone wants to give him the credit for changing the culture. So the year that he came in, yes, they won more games than they had the previous few years, but they still didn't make the playoffs. They made the playoffs one time. Losing was contagious, and the efforts of practice were contagious. not practicing when you're injured. But he, missed practice and, because he was injured. So the Browns didn't go 1-31 because guys weren't practicing and resting up. And with Jarvis, he is the guy a couple years ago that said, "Come get me" to the Arizona sidelines. He, of course, denied that. There's multiple reports out there that he did say that. Is that the kind of culture you want where, hey, I'm disgruntled, come get me to another team? We knew Odell Beckham Jr. said it to them. It was reported that he said it multiple times to multiple teams prior to that. I believe the Steelers were one of them, the Patriots, and I think the Raiders maybe. Either way, Jarvis could have stepped up and like, hey, that's not what we need. But he didn't. He wanted to engage in that, which is fine. That's his prerogative again. And yeah, so I don't know how much he actually changed because they've won a few more games each year, and they did have the one playoff game, playoff run with the playoff win, almost knocked out the Chiefs in the second round. But how much did the change happen? So going from 1 or 2 wins a season to 6 or 7, I don't know how much of a culture change that really is.
All right, let's move on. This one's kind of interesting. So this is from Josina Anderson, and it regards a wide receiver. So Mayfield's Andy Isabella has been granted permission to have his agent seek a trade. Now, the reason that's kind of interesting, Eddie, is Isabella is a guy the Browns were kind of nosing around about at the trade deadline, a young guy, speed guy, who is a football player. Again, went to Mayfield High School, played at UMass, was a really productive wide receiver at UMass, smaller football type program. But a guy that, he's just blocked in Arizona by 5-6 wide receivers. So that's an intriguing guy. Probably wouldn't cost you much, and I could see the Browns taking a flyer on him.
Yeah, you almost have to take some flyers on certain guys. I don't see why not here. He's only 25 years old. A lot of people, I saw someone say you can call him a bust if you want, because he hasn't not done much. And like you said, he has a crowded wide receiver room in Arizona, and they have one ball to get around. And with all the talent they have out there in that room, they can't keep everyone. And eventually that's going to be something like what the Rams will have to do. But with him, bring him in, take a flyer on him. You probably get him for a 5th or 6th round pick, maybe. I would do that yesterday if I could, and just see what he has. And if he doesn't, pan out, you can obviously cut him or you can trade him. But it is nice knowing that he is someone who is likely available now, and he was on the Browns' radar last year. And this year they get to do it again, I guess. And like I said, a 5th or 6th round pick should do it.
Yeah, I would agree. And it's a guy that was a mid-second round pick when he came out a couple years ago. Eddie McDonald and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. And Eddie will give us 3 guys that NFL teams should trade up for. Sports4CLE continues talking Browns. Stay with us.
Life is getting back on track, and so is the job market. Be ready with the training you'll need to get a great job. If you or your family has experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with tuition assistance. Whether you want to improve your skills, get certified, or train for a new career, go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. Register now for online and on-campus classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Eddie McDonald of Dawg Pound Daily. We're going to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about a list to help the Browns get better.
The coach has ruined Baker Mayfield's confidence by playing when he was injured. And any pro football player is going to play regardless. He's going to try his best. But you could use Case Keenum and be a good coach and see all that. The next thing I would do is I would move Wills back to right tackle, to the right side. That's what he played in college. Yeah, sure, he was a backside protector, but the fact was he had a left-handed quarterback. So move him back to the right side where he was good, and then try to get Orlando Brown if you can for the left side. You can draft Treylon Burks or whoever you want. You need 2 probably wideouts that you can draft. Don't get them from free agency. They're too expensive. You won't get what you want. And that's you got to restructure or keep Clowney. You just got to do that. and restructure or cut Landry. So there you have it. That's at least a start for becoming a good Browns team.
All right, as always, appreciate all of the voicemails. And Eddie, when you look at it, again, I don't think you ruined Baker Mayfield's confidence. I don't think he was confident the way he played. But they clearly thought Baker Mayfield gave them the best chance to win. You don't play a guy in the NFL unless you're convinced. And they were looking at the medicals. He was cleared medically. So we're going through this again. The reason Baker Mayfield started is he gave him the best chance to win in the condition he was.
That's just the reality of it. I will trust in whatever Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry and that whole team decides to do, because they know more about football than I could ever dream of knowing. They've forgotten more about football than I could ever dream of knowing. So I'm going to put it in their hands and trust them as a fan and just be like, hey, if that's what gave us the best shot, that is what gave us the best shot to win. Obviously, that panned out sometimes, and obviously a lot did not pan out. I don't think they ruined his confidence, though. I just think he got in his own head. I don't think it's because I think he was just trying to overcompensate for that injury. I don't think that's a coaching thing. I just think he just tried playing too hard, and guys do that. They don't want to sit out, obviously, and coaches sometimes had to protect them from themselves. I don't think that was the case here because, for as much as a lot of people raved about Case Keenum, and he's a great backup, and he knows the fancy system, he wasn't doing more than what Baker could. So why not play Baker? He was cleared medically, so but he just had no confidence in himself. I don't think that had anything to do with Kevin Stefanski.
Yeah, I would agree. And the Browns have already come out. Both Andrew Berry and Stefanski have said they're going to leave Wills at left tackle. They're not going to flip him over to right tackle, so that's not happening. All right, let's move on. You wrote an article, 3 players to trade up for in the NFL draft. And this one for the Browns, but guys you think are worth going and getting. So take us through who you had.
Oh, yeah, David Ojabo of Michigan. I think he might be the better of the 2 Michigan edge rushers that are coming out of the draft. Aiden Hutchinson is a tremendous player. He's going to get, obviously the majority of the attention, and he had a better season, but not by much. He had 3 more sacks. They both had double-digit sacks. It was incredible. And then, Hutchinson, they compared him a lot to TJ Watt, which either unfairly, I think that's very unfair to compare anyone to him. I get it, but it's a little bit unfair because he's just an incredible player. But this is a guy who can come in, and if Clowney leaves, and if he stays, he can either be that rotational piece at the edge, or he can be the new, I guess, Clowney in with Garrett. So, like I said, I think he might be the better of the 2 overall, but he's still young and he's still raw. He's only 21 years old. He only played football for like 2 or 3 years now. So he is sort of a project as well, but I think if the Browns see him at 13, they have to heavily consider him.
The other one that you had is another edge rusher from Oregon, a guy that some people think could go high, Kayvon Thibodeau, and if he goes and slides, you think should jump on that and go up and grab him.
I would trade 13 and 44 for him if possible. If he fell to 5 or 6 or so, I would do that. I say that now, I might change my mind, but I would do that. I think he is actually the best player overall in this draft from different things I've read and different things I've watched. And so he is just a big physical player. And I said earlier, you can't compare someone to TJ Watt. I compared him in this somewhat to Myles Garrett because they have a similar skill set. I'm not saying that he is Myles Garrett or he's Myles Garrett 2.0, but they have a similar build and a similar skill set. And you have that pair on each end. And then maybe if you get Clowney back, you can move him into the interior on certain downs. That is a scary thing for any opponent or for any opposing quarterback. But yeah, I love this kid. I would heavily consider trading up for him. And there's no way he falls past. I don't think he falls past 6. But if the Browns want him and that's their guy, I would trade up in a heartbeat for him.
And then the last thing you say is you trade up for whichever wide receiver Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski, and the scouting department falls in love with there.
Yeah, like we talked about a couple of times. We talked about earlier. We talked about last week. There are so many good receivers in this draft class that are going to help a bunch of teams and would instantly upgrade this Browns receiving room. You can ask me today who it might be. It could be, Garrett Wilson. We talked about earlier. I don't think they would trade up for Chris Olave. I think they would trade down and maybe get him. But you have Drake London, who is sensational. You have Treylon Burks, who is sensational. You can take a risk on Jameson Williams because he said 5 to 7 months, the doctors told him, and that would put him right about training camp time. So any one of those, if they feel that how the draft is going and they feel that, it's not going their way, hey, we might have to trade up for one of these guys, they can do that if they choose. I'm not saying they will do that, but if they want a certain guy and think, oh, hey, this team might take, a Drake London or a Treylon Burks, hey, I better go trade for him. And unless they have and they also have the option of, hey, if this guy goes, we'll take the next guy.
All right, before we head to break, let's take a look at one more mock draft. This one, Chris Trapasso, CBSSports.com. And he has the Browns going edge in Jermaine Johnson. Guy kind of has flown up draft boards since his performance at the Senior Bowl. And, he could end up going up even higher with what he does at the Combine. Do you see any way that the Browns take an edge rusher? And if they did, would you be okay with that?
Actually, I do. Last time I was on, I said I was probably like 90, 95% sure the Browns would, or 85 to 90% sure that the Browns would go wide receiver. I don't know if that's the case anymore. We'll see how free agency plays out in a couple weeks. We'll see if Jadeveon Clowney comes back. But I'm convinced that it's more of a 60-40 receiver edge. And I wouldn't mind an edge. I don't know if I would take Jermaine Johnson there. He's a heck of a player as well. But like I said, there's David Ojabo, who's the better of the two Michigan edge rushers, and but I would not be mad, no, at number 13 taking an edge rusher to pair along with Myles Garrett and or Jadeveon Clowney, because if Clowney comes back, you've seen it last year that you can move him into the interior for a couple, or you can, if Myles needs that break, it can be Clowney and insert whatever edge rusher. So I would not be mad in the slightest bit.
Eddie McDonald from Dawg Pound Daily and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, and we will also take a look at a list of free agent kickers. Who thought we'd be talking free agent kickers? Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Eddie McDonald from Dawg Pound Daily. Time for us to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the Browns and all the injuries last year.
Oh, hi, my name is Joe. I'm living here in Western New York, so Buffalo Bills country. So I wanted to bring up the topic of injuries. And it seems like the last couple of years, the Browns have gotten hit pretty good with the injury bug. I'm hearing that in Bills country that the Bills have been pretty good as far as like maybe the top 2 or 3 teams that have not had the injury bug hit them within the last 3 years. And so they must be doing something right when they're practicing, how they're using their strength and conditioning, and maybe the Browns could go talk to the Bills and see what the heck is working for them. Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right, Joe, appreciate the voicemail. Eddie, Sean McDermott, we're gonna play him back that voicemail if he just put the whammy on the Bills for being healthy. A lot of that is, I don't want to say it's luck, but some of it's luck. That's just the way injuries seem to happen.
Yeah, and with the Browns, if you've been a Browns fan for any amount of time, the Browns have nothing but bad luck. And it's one of those things that you can't catch a break. But I think that caller had actually an interesting point, because I was talking about this with some of my Dawg Pound Daily writers and stuff, and the fact that they have so many soft tissue injuries, like a lot of hamstring injuries. Something has to give. Something has to, I don't know if the right medical staff is there. I obviously do not know medicine. I write for a living and I work with kids for a living. I don't know anything about medicine. So I'll trust those people, but something has to give. The strength and conditioning has to get better, I would assume. Because, yes, sometimes there is luck on some injuries. Even the Baker Mayfield injury when he got, through the interception, he doesn't make that tackle or try to make that tackle. We're in a completely different conversation likely right now. But the hamstrings and just the soft tissue injuries, that's got to change because we've been hampered by that the past few seasons.
Yeah, and who's to say? Is some of it because of what the practice restrictions are, but everybody's under it. So yeah, it's I'm sure that's something that they will be looking into extensively as they get ready for next season, being the Browns. All right, rankings for the top free agent kickers and punters. This is according to CBSSports.com. The Browns obviously need a kicker. McLaughlin didn't quite get it done. So number one is Young-Ho Koo from the Falcons, Matt Gay from the Rams, number 2, Nick Folk, number 3, from the Patriots, number 4, Joey Sly, Dustin Hopkins. So there are you see the big name free agent kickers. The kicking game hurt the Browns, I believe. Also important to note, Dustin Colquitt is going to be a free agent as well, the punter. Any of the free agent kickers grab your fancy? By and large, NFL teams usually like to try to find their young guy and keep him. Kicking game needs to be upgraded. The special teams need to be upgraded.
Yeah, so I think the first time I was actually on this show, we discussed kickers because I wrote about free agent kickers to target for the Browns, and surprisingly, that got a lot of views, more than I would think for kickers because, well, they won't care about kickers. But Koo was at the top of my list. He's 27, he'll be 28 in August, so by the time the season rolls around, still a relatively young guy, very accurate. It will be interesting to see if he does sign with Cleveland, how he does in the elements of Cleveland. Nick Folk was number 2 on my list. I like him a lot because he is older, so it wouldn't be that young guy that we're going to not build around, but have for a while. But he is kicked in New England and in Buffalo. So he's kicked in all those elements. So it's similar to Cleveland. They have, the Lake Erie right there. Matt Gay, I would love to have that, but he is a restricted free agent, I'm pretty sure. So the Rams will have a say if he goes anywhere or not. But Joey Sly wouldn't be bad. There's some guys in the draft that look good. I just want someone who can kick the ball through the uprights when we send them out there. One miss, okay, that's fine. But I just want someone who can put it through the uprights, put 3 points on the board, so we don't have to continuously go for it on 4th down when it's like, hey, we don't need to kick the field goal. Hey, we can't though.
There's got to be 32 guys that can put it through the uprights consistently. That's all you're looking for. There's only 32 teams. There should be one for every team that can consistently hit field goals. I'm with you. All right, before we let you go, we're going to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about some ideas with wide receiver and the draft as well.
Thanks for bringing Quincy Carrier on your voicemail of Truth and Reasoning. He's a great guy, very knowledgeable about the Browns. But, yeah, moving forward, how to improve the Cleveland Browns roster, starting with the draft, okay? I think that we ought to get a dynamic, somebody that threatens the defense, such as a Garrett Wilson, Treylon Burks, somebody like that. And then, moving forward, in our second pick, we need to improve our defensive tackle room. I think that we should inherit Perrion Winfrey. I think that he would be a great dynamic defensive tackle, that can definitely get to the quarterback. Somebody to help out Myles Garrett and my boy J.O.K.
All right, we appreciate all of the voicemails. Second round might be a little high for a defensive tackle, but if it is a guy that pressures, I say that Aaron Donald makes that defense in Los Angeles kind of work. So if you get somebody, and you're not going to get another Aaron Donald, if you get somebody that can get pressure up the middle, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I agree. We do need some reinforcements at defensive tackle, and I'm all about either upgrading in free agency or the draft. I'm not drafting one in the second round. I know that. That's not taking away from any of the talent. I just don't see a good fit for the Browns in the second round that I would, make that leap of faith, if you will. I would definitely go either edge rusher or receiver, depending on what they do in the first round. I would not go defensive tackle there. It's a good thought process. I get where the caller is coming from because we do need to shore up the middle and be able to stop the run a little bit better, not get pushed around so much. But I don't think it's solved in round number 2. And if it is, and I'll be glad to be wrong, I just do not see that happening.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Eddie McDonald from Dawg Pound Daily. Eddie, great stuff. Appreciate the time as always. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, Eddie McDonald. Make sure you read him, Dawg Pound Daily. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we continue talking Browns. The D-Man, Dennis Manoloff, will join us. Stay with us on Sports4CLE.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Time to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the Browns quarterback and offense.
Focusing on the new season and forgetting all the draft and all of that, we're back to, everybody's focusing on Baker Mayfield's recovery. And I just wanted to know if you could answer the question why Stefanski and Baker, yes, aren't always on the same page. So if they are not, why isn't Baker allowed to let Baker be Baker and make his own play as he sees fit? I mean, most quarterbacks do. Nothing is perfect. And if the route rider ain't riding the right route, then you're going to make alternate play accordingly. So why not just let Baker be Baker and let him fly, baby? Okay? Thanks for your time.
All right, we appreciate all the voicemails. Let's welcome in the D-Man, Dennis Manoloff, News Radio, WTAM 1100, 106.9 FM. The point out of that's real valid is it's a little bit of a mismatch between Baker Mayfield's style, Kevin Stefanski's offense. Kevin Stefanski's offense does not want to turn the ball over. When you let Baker Mayfield let it rip, he's going to turn the ball over a little bit more than the Browns want offensively.
Yeah, I don't think Kevin Stefanski will ever be confused with Oklahoma gunslinger in terms of his philosophy. But, Baker Mayfield would say, hey, I take care of the ball too. That's my objective. I don't want to turn it over. And you keep going back to that 2020 season as to how you can answer the voicemail of Truth and Reason. And as you said, Dave, we always appreciate everybody calling in, leaving the voicemails. Stefanski and Mayfield would say, look at the results that we delivered in 2020 when we had, Baker Mayfield, the gunslinger, playing in my system. We both got along great. His numbers were good. My wins and losses were good. My offense was good. So I think they can coexist. But I do get the point about Baker seeing something at the line of scrimmage and making a change, making an adjustment. Rare is the time, it seems. Now, maybe he's changing plays a lot more than we think he is. We just don't know it because we can't see it on, we're not there. We're not in the headsets and all that stuff. But it feels like he doesn't change plays very often. And sometimes you sit there and you go, wow, it would have behooved him if he would have audibled out of this and gone to that. Maybe he gets more freedom to do that, and that would help his cause as far as not turning it over or making bad passes, and would allow him to spread his wings a little more. But yeah, I do scratch my head sometimes wondering why Baker almost never changes plays at the line of scrimmage.
And we'll see. That might be something that that they're ready to do in this upcoming year. That might be one of the tweaks. All right, we're going to go to the KJM show, ESPN. Keyshawn Johnson, Jay Williams answering the question: should the Browns bring in Mitchell Trubisky to kind of compete with Baker Mayfield?
Mitch Trubisky is too big of a threat.
100%. I agree with that, Jay. With Trubisky, you have an immediate controversy.
Yeah, exactly.
So I know, Jay,
you're
thinking. Jay is thinking, well, you improve your quarterback room.
No, you don't want to do that, man.
But you might not actually.
Quarterbacks are very, very sensitive in situations, and they will come on this show and
here's my thing.
Tell me no, but they are. You don't.
Jay, in other words, if you bring in Trubisky, you trade Baker. You don't have them both there together.
Yeah, but I'm not trading. Baker.
No.
Bring in Trubisky.
Okay. So
why all of a sudden are we in this world where it's like if we're talking about we're not sure Baker Mayfield is our guy long term, or even if you're part of the argument where
but
it's
I'm not trying to
wait a
stress
second.
him out though, Jay.
Dude, sometimes when stress tests are the best thing to see who the hell you are, man.
You can't.
Why do you think we do stress tests for people like Richard Jefferson talks about Gilbert Arenas and his stress tests, right? And he's like, I'm not doing okay.
Jay,
that gives me insight into who you are to a degree.
Jay,
I think Baker Mayfield will rise to that challenge. I think some players need to be kicked in the ass a little bit to push them to understand who do you want to be.
Case Keenum is already there. I don't need to bring another young dude.
They already got a guy better than Baker on the roster. They don't need to bring another guy.
I don't need to bring him in and stress him out.
I'm with Jay on this though. That is interesting.
Come on, man. You're talking about paying you $35 million. You think I'm worried about you getting stressed out? Go earn it.
Yeah, but what'll happen is if he crumbles, you just wasted the season.
If he crumbles, then he ain't our guy.
All right, D-Man, it's interesting. I'm not one of the guys that wants to bring in somebody to compete because I think teams that have aspirations going deep into the playoffs don't have quarterback competitions. I do think Baker's the type of guy that responds to that. This situation, though, where clearly he was not confident at the end of last year, I don't know that you bring somebody in as a challenge. I think this time you say you're our guy or you're not our guy, and you go with it.
Yeah, listen, I don't want to go media on media crime, Dave, but some of the stuff I heard in that exchange was just utter ridiculousness. I'll leave it at that. Mitch Trubisky, if he comes in to Cleveland, we love Mitch. Northeast Ohio's own. Men are legend, okay? So I'm not knocking Mitch Trubisky really when I'm saying this. But if he were to come to Cleveland, he is not competition for Baker Mayfield. He just isn't. One reason among many is he's coming off of a season where he was basically dormant, okay? He was the backup to Josh Allen in Buffalo. He didn't do anything to speak of. So he's not going from that to suddenly competing for the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, a team who 1 year earlier, or it'd be 2 years earlier by the time 2022 starts, went 11-5 under Mayfield and won a playoff game. So this idea that Trubisky coming in would rattle Baker is ridiculous. And I'm not even the biggest Baker honk here. I'm just saying that's not the guy that comes in here and rattles the cage of Baker Mayfield. A guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, let's say, if Garoppolo were to come in, that's a dude that could legitimately challenge Baker, but not Mitch Trubisky at this stage of Trubisky's career.
All right. You are a guy that likes, the odds and whatnot. So we're going to take a look at this. Browns Week 1 starters, according to bookies.com. Again, that's bookies.com. Baker Mayfield minus 110. And next in line, Kirk Cousins plus 350. So that pretty solid odds that Baker Mayfield going to be the Browns starter that the Browns keep reiterating. You see Cousins the second, Wilson and Derek Carr at plus 750, Kenny Pickett, Carson Wentz plus 1,800, Corral, Jimmy Garoppolo plus 2,000, and then you see all the way down to the field at plus 3,500. And the Seahawks have come out at the combine saying they're not trading Russell Wilson. Jimmy Garoppolo had surgery on his throwing arm. He can't do anything for 16 weeks. So looking more and more like the Browns were being upfront and honest when they said Baker Mayfield's going to be our quarterback in 2022.
Yeah, he is the guy, entertainment purposes only. If I were to put coin on it, I'd put coin on the Bake Show, because I think the Browns are going to give him an opportunity to redeem himself, to set himself up for a nice future payday. They will not be paying him this year, even though his reps undoubtedly desperately want him to get paid now. They're not going to be willing to do it. And if they were willing to do it, it wouldn't be at the Baker's reps price. So Mayfield's going to play on a make good this year. He'll be the number one guy for Cleveland. The Browns are going to see if they can replicate the 2020 Baker, who dovetailed with Stefanski and played well. They're going to look and see. They're going to say, okay, prove that 2021 was an aberration, especially now that you're healthy. And what we have to keep remembering, Dave Bacon, is that, Baker Mayfield was the number one overall pick not long ago. And if he hadn't gone number one overall, he probably would have gone in the top 7 or 8 at least. So this is not a quarterback who is in his 30s, who you're trying to squeeze an extra drop of production out of. This is a guy who in 2018 was the top pick in the draft. And I just don't think the Browns are ready to move on from him. Maybe after 2022, if 2022 doesn't turn out well, but at the very least, the final year of that, that 5-year contract essentially that he has when he starts the year, his career, that they'll ride that out.
And Dennis Manoloff and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. It's also Combine Week, so we're going to talk some Combine prospects. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Life is getting back on track, and so is the job market. Be ready with the training you'll need to get a great job. If you or your family has experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with tuition assistance. Whether you want to improve your skills, get certified, or train for a new career, go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. Register now for online and on-campus classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with the D-Man, Dennis Manoloff. Time for us to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about where the Browns are as a team.
Yeah, I just want to say the only sense I can really make of what's really going on lately is the fact that I think we're in a slow-paced rebuild. I don't see why they would lock up the running backs last year, sign the linemen, let the receivers go. Mayfield's contract expiring. They got the defense the way they want it. I mean, just plain and simple, it's a rebuild. So I don't look forward to nothing real big this season. I would say this, probably chill out on the getting into it with all the narratives and stuff, because a lot of these guys probably ain't going to be here. I would assume Mayfield is gone, and I would assume that Jarvis Landry ain't coming back. Barry's been making that a little bit obvious. But I don't know, man. What do y'all think? It's a rebuild or not? I don't think the team that we're going to have that'll be significant is going to be the one that went to the playoffs in 20. Rebuild. It's happening right now. Cleveland fans rock.
All right, we appreciate all of the voicemails. Demon, I don't think it's a rebuild. Again, I think the 11-5 was a little bit misleading. They won a lot of close games, and this year they lost all of the close games. That's really the difference between the 11-5 season and the 8-9 season. They didn't win close games this year.
Rebuild, please, no rebuild. I pray that that's not what the Browns are on the cusp of, or I guess you'd use the word brink of. It doesn't. No, the defense being ready-made, they've worked it to get to a point where it's competitive, with the better defense. Yeah, certainly in the AFC. So that's not a rebuild Mayfield situation and the offense. If Mayfield can rebound, if he can come back, then all of a sudden you're not rebuilding because your QB1 is playing well. Nick Chubb, we know him to be tremendous. I am nervous, though. I will say this. I'm leery of offenses in today's game that lean on the running backs and the tight ends. It just doesn't work for me. I think you have to have a dynamic offense that starts with the quarterback and flows through some pretty darn good wide receivers, recognizing that it certainly helps to run the ball, yes, and Nick Chubb is valuable, and he's one of the best in the league. But this team desperately needs a dynamic passing attack or elements of a dynamic passing attack. It starts with the quarterback getting back to health. It continues with rebuilding the wide receiver room, and I think it also includes Kevin Stefanski and Alex Van Pelt taking a long look in the mirror at how they build game plans and figuring out ways that they can stretch the field with their play calling. You get all three of those three factors heading in the right direction in 2022, and all of a sudden it's not a rebuild.
Yeah, all of a sudden, things are looking like they did a couple of years ago. All right, the 2022 Combine underway. Draft prospects to watch, needs for all 32 teams, according to ESPN.com. And they say it will be a successful offseason if the Browns land a big-time quarterback like Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, or, which is much more likely, if they can surround incumbent starter Baker Mayfield with more weapons. Prospect Combine, a prospect to watch at the Combine, Treylon Burks from the Arkansas Razorbacks. Lack explosive on the perimeter, and Burks could appeal to them as chess piece move around the formation. Well, Burks talked at the Combine today, and he talked about who he models his game after. Take a listen to this one, D-Man.
Touched a lot of Deebo Samuel just by, the way that he plays running back, he plays inside, plays outside, multi-player person, athlete, and, that's what I try to mimic my game after.
And if it's Deebo Samuel, D-Man, I'm all in. The guy has 4X hands, monsters to catch the football with.
100%. I'll sign up with a guy who wants to be like Deebo Samuel in the NFL. Samuel's one of my favorite non-Browns. Here's what I'm sensing, Dave, and I kind of wish that the underwear Olympics were canceled because I don't want the great numbers being posted by these wide receivers, because all of a sudden 13 is going to start feeling like 29 in the first round, because these receivers, I'm guessing, whoever does what, are going to be wowing the scouts. I've already seen one mock from one of the analysts where, London, I think it was actually Cleveland. I don't remember who it was, but Cleveland had traded up to 9 to get London. So I'm sensing there's going to be a lot of that buzz surrounding this wide receiver class, and specifically Burks, Wilson, London, to me, all look like potential monsters at the NFL. And I don't want to leave out Olave and, of course, Jamison Williams, given that Williams is coming off of the ACL. He's not getting as much run. But those 5 guys, and I'm sure they'll find another one in there too to make it a 6-pack, that's a pretty good-looking crop there. And I think the Browns have got to come out of the draft with one of those guys.
Yeah, I would agree with you. So let's take a look at this. And it was actually Mel Kiper who had the Browns trading up to 9 to get ahead of the Jets to take Drake London. That was the mock draft you're talking about. Pro Football Focus's Sam Monson tweets this out. Treylon Burks may be the most special athlete of this year's wide receiver class. And the Browns have already said they've met with him. Burks did tell everybody that the Browns one of the teams that had met with him. So let's also look at another new mock draft. This one came and dropped today. Bucky Brooks, NFL.com, has the Browns taking Drake London. And he says, supersized, pass catcher, extraordinary length, former stud basketball player, wins 50-50 balls. on the perimeter. And D-Man, take a listen to who Drake London says he models his game after. Again, this was today from the Combine.
I had people like Manoloff, Pitt, and Tyler Vaughns, and I was able to take things from them. And then also a coach like Coach Casey, who's also a great at SC. So definitely guys like those who I can attribute my game after. And then also people like Mike Evans, just a guy who's similarly built as me, and I could take his fluidity from his game, being that he's been in the league so long and things that he knows. So definitely somebody like him.
So we could pencil you in for 1,000 every season like Mike Evans does?
Yeah, I'm going to try to shoot for that.
That's a good goal.
A lot of those look like Mike Evans highlights there.
Like you said, my mentors, like Pitt and them, I could always just call them up and ask them, hey, how does this work? How'd you do good at this? And how'd you get accustomed to certain things? So I definitely have good people in my back pocket, and I'm just excited for the future.
So he's referring, D-Man, to Michael Pittman, wide receiver for the Colts, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, who was a first-round pick, who did pretty well for the Lions last year, in addition to Mike Evans. Again, Mike Evans, sign me up.
I'll take the Mike Evans comp, please, because I think Mike Evans is a fantastic receiver. His numbers prove it. London, it looks more and more like a beast. I only saw him in a couple of USC games over the course of his career, but I've been watching more and more of the videos, and he looks the part. And the Browns have that need. They really do have a need at wide receiver, and of course they're going to downplay it. They're going to want to, because this front office and this coaching staff, as smart as it is, never wants to let people know that they're needy. Okay. They always want to make it seem like they're under control. Everything's fine. We got it all measured. Don't worry about it. You tell us we got a wide receiver need. Nah, we're good. But deep down, they have to look at this wide receiver class and go, oh, wow, this is exactly what we need. Perfect. I think of, in a basketball comp. Okay, Dave, the Cavaliers, 3 overall in 2021, Evan Mobley. It was the perfect match of a highly skilled prospect and a team that needed Mobley, needed his position, needed his height, needed his length, everything else. This is the way I see it with the Browns. It's a perfect match because you have a talented group of receivers who you're almost positive can translate to the NFL level, and you happen to have a need at that position.
The D-Man, Dennis Manoloff from WTAM News Radio 1100. We're going to take one more time out. Other side of the break, we head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason for a couple of calls. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with the D-Man, Dennis Manoloff. We're going to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one from Ron Byer.
Dave, every day the talk concerning the Cleveland Browns comes down to, is Baker Mayfield a good NFL quarterback? When I believe the talk should be, is the strict scheme Kevin Stefanski forces on the offense the correct scheme? The facts are, when healthy, Baker Mayfield has been a very good quarterback for the Browns. Now let's take 2 receivers, Hollywood Higgins and Landry. Baker and Higgins were on the same page, and when a key catch was needed, it generally happened. And when Baker gets into trouble, Landry always finds a way to get into position for Baker to throw him the ball. Because Stefanski forces a strict scheme, I believe this is why Higgins got into the doghouse. Landry, because he's a total team player, got away with it. Yes, from the snap of the ball to the catch is A to Z, but it does not have to be in a straight line as long as the quarterback and receivers are on the same page. If Stefanski continues to call plays, he needs to adjust the scheme to let the players play to their strengths as long as the quarterback and receivers are on the same page. Then I believe the results will be victories and the negativity and uncertainties will finally end.
All right, Ron, as always, appreciate the voicemail of Truth and Reason. D-Man, Kevin Stefanski did reiterate earlier in the show and at the Combine today that he will, in fact, call plays again this year. Too strict? I don't know. I think the scheme does need to be tweaked somehow, some way. I'm not sure to what level. But I don't think Kevin Stefanski has shown himself to be this guy that's stubborn, and if he thinks change will make it better, I think he'll change, and I think he will change.
I agree to a point. I mean, we don't know what goes on behind the scenes, inside the walls. I would assume Kevin Stefanski is reasonably flexible. One of the analysts I trust, Jake Burns of the Orange and Brown Report, he insists, listen, and he's not anybody's apologist. He's not anybody's bootlicker. He says, for all y'all that are talking about Stefanski not doing this or not doing that, he's watched the film, and in his opinion, Stefanski's system has created ample opportunity for everybody to do good things on offense. This past year, it crumbled more so because of the quarterback play than anything else. It wasn't that Stefanski wasn't scheming people open. So I trust Jake there. That said, and I've talked to him on the air on my talk shows on News Radio WTAM 1100, I do think that Kevin Stefanski does need to look at the vertical passing game and say, all right, what do I have in my schemes with vertical passing games that I can really expand on or expound upon or, make a more elastic. I don't know how easy that is or how difficult it is for that matter, but you would think that Stefanski would take a long look at his own performance this year just to shore up, make sure, okay, I was good with my play calling. Especially when the game's happening so fast. I'm not saying he can't handle it, but it does feel like sometimes other elements of the Browns' game day operations kind of get lost on Stefanski because he's so focused on calling plays.
All right, here's one for you. If you could have the Browns sign one free agent, top free agent, for this exercise, we're going to assume Davante Adams gets franchise tag. He won't be on it, so I'm taking Davante Adams out of it. Who would you have the Browns sign that you think would make the biggest impact towards getting them back to where they need to be and being a threat in the AFC?
Well, I'm going to cheat on it a little bit, Dave. Jadeveon Clowney would be my preference, okay? I'd like to see Clowney back here. I love the bookends of Miles and Clowney. My sense, though, my gut tells me that a team out there is going to be willing to overpay for Jadeveon and give him more money and perhaps more years than the Browns would do. So I'm sensing he might be out of there. But as far as free agents not with the Browns, I would want Mike Williams in here. And you know what? I mean, you pair up Mike Williams with a stud out of this wide receiver draft class, one of the top 5 that we mentioned, and all of that wide receiver room has turned on its head. It's gone from a liability to a strength, and suddenly Baker Mayfield's going, wow. I mean, can you imagine Mike Williams and, for example, Drake London with that kind of size all of a sudden at wide receiver and their skills? The Bake Show would be like, thank you. I really appreciate it. Now, I know you could say, well, Baker had OBJ and it didn't work with him, and OBJ and Stefanski and Baker, that whole triangle didn't work. I get it. But I still think that as much need as the offense, as the wide receiver room needs for an upgrade, as much as it needs an upgrade, I would go to Mike Williams and then couple him with a stud out of the draft.
All right, before we let you go, we're going to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. And this one just kind of about free agency and the quarterback of the Browns.
Hi, guys. Love the show. Tired of the Baker Mayfield redundancies, though. Quick query. If Jadeveon Clowney isn't signed by the start of free agency and has priced himself way up there, would it be an option to pursue Chandler Jones instead?
Again, appreciate it. Yeah, Chandler Jones would be an option. And about the Baker redundancy, that's what a lot of people want to talk about. And the other thing is, that is something that Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski and the Browns have to get right. They have to get the quarterback position right. And they got to find out, is Baker the guy they thought they were, that he was 2 years ago? And get that going forward. That's why there's a lot of Baker talk here.
Yeah, and by the way, Chandler Jones, unrealistic as far as I can tell. I just don't see that happening, if Clowney were to fall through. But, yeah, I mean, Baker, we've talked about it. We'll continue to talk about it. He's the key to everything, especially in the AFC. Well, 21st century football, number one, is pass-oriented. I don't care what anybody says or anybody tries to say in the small minority number of people who might stick to their guns about running the running game. You have to be able to air the ball out in the 21st century NFL, especially in the AFC. I mean, it's scary to think of how good the top end of the AFC is in terms of the quarterbacks. And therefore, Baker Mayfield is the key to this Cleveland Browns team. He must be healthy enough to play at a high level. And then after being healthy enough to play at a high level, he actually has to deliver. And we shall see, but he's the key to everything.
D-Man, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Dennis Manoloff, you can listen to him, WTAM News Radio, 1100, 106.9 FM. As always, man, appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave Bacon.
All right, Dennis Manoloff again, WTAM News Radio 1100 106.9 FM. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports4CLE. See you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guest Hayden Grove from the Scouting Combine in Indianapolis and Sam Amico from Hoopswire.com. We'll talk some Cavs and some Browns tomorrow at 4 on Sports4CLE. We'll see you then. Have a great night, everybody.